Good afternoon once again, everyone. And first, I would like to thank Team SRM and Team Manav Rachna, particularly Mahalakshmi ma'am, for giving me this opportunity to discuss on one of my favorite topics, that is research misconduct, because I've always had a keen interest in ethics in research and all the misconduct that's happening in research for quite some time, probably more than a decade. So over this decade, I have learned not only there is a progressive increase in publication, but there is a progressive increase in misconduct and its repercussions also. So today, I believe it's all first years here. So by the end of the lecture, I'm sure you'll be pretty scared to publish. So I'll be giving you all the repercussions that can happen if you do any kind of a misconduct. And over these 5 days, you will be learning about what to do in research, how to do the research, and all those things. I think this will be the only topic that will be saying, don't do this in research. It's like, don't do this, don't do that. If you do this, this is what is going to happen. So that is what is my topic. And it's like, I really enjoy talking on this topic. So first, let us see why do we have to publish. Initial days, it was actually a pleasure to publish. We all used to think, yes, I've done something significant. I want to know the world to know. Seeing my name in print, in online is something that we always love to see. So it was always a pleasure to publish, which later slowly became like it was publish or perish concept. That is, it became a yardstick for your career promotion, and they started giving incentives and all those things. So it became a perish or publish concept. Later, what happened nowadays, I think it's the most important yardstick to measure your accreditation of your institute, and like NERF ranking, NAC, and so many other things. That there is definitely a pressure on the staff and the students, definitely to pressurize them to publish enough and more every year, so that the university is in the top list. So I'm sure that from first year, I think you guys will be knowing this with what's happening in the department and all those things. So the current concept is there is definitely a pressure to publish. So when you see the stats of what is exactly happening is from 2018, there is an exponential, humongous growth of publications that's been happening throughout the globe. It's not only India. And if you see the countries that is producing or mass churning publications are obviously China, most populous, and India again ranking third. It is most populous. It has most number of universities in the world. So obviously the number of research that is generated from India is also huge. So since there is a huge number of increase in publications, obviously no research is flawless. There is definitely a flaw in every kind of a research we do. There is no perfect research. So and moreover, when there is a pressure, you tend to do it in a hurry. So the number of flawed publications is also increasing. Internet is being a boon and a bane. So the access to the internet is become so easy that the whistleblowers have increased in numbers. And there are a lot of tools that is available, online artificial intelligence based tools that is available to locate all this misconduct. Therefore, since there is an increase in publication, there is an increase in possibility of something called as the most important side effect of publishing a wrong publication or a wrong data is a retraction. I just added this slide instantly because I heard that it's all first years, maybe not be knowing what a retraction is. See, once you publish, your name is there online. If you click on PubMed, you click on Scopus, anywhere you put, for example, Nandini, Suresh, I'm happy to see my name. Yes, it is published. But if there is going to be an issue, and they are going to analyze your data, they can pull out the article. That means it does not go out of online. It's still there. If you see here, the article is still there, but with the term retraction. So what big deal? The retraction as such is significantly indicates that it is being flagged for a seriously flawed research, such that the conclusion and result cannot be depended on. So once you get into doing publications, you will realize that having a retraction is not something good to you. It's not, there'll be a lot of repercussions. I'll be talking about it later. You will have an inquiry committee. You can be barred from certain activities in research and all those things. But it is not only a shame for yourself or the university, it is a shame for the nation as such. So, as since you guys are in your first year, I think this is the right time to learn that integrity is the soul of research. I'm not talking SOLE, it is SOUL. It's the soul of research is being doing good, integrity, and honest research. So if you are able to take that point from this lecture, I'll be my day is made. Like if I'm able to convert 120 students to do honest research, that is the purpose of this lecture. So this will show you the black dots are the gradual increase in publications. You see it's stopping till 2010. There's a gradual increase of publications. And if you see the retractions are starting to spike up only from 2003 to 4 once the internet access has become more. But it was all till 2010. So I was stumped when I was preparing for this particular lecture because my first lecture on misconduct was probably a decade back. So that time I used to lecture saying there are annually 300 or 400 retractions per year, and that was called as the tip of the iceberg. Now, this was published in 2022 by Mr. Ivan Orinsky. He is one of the editor of a blog called as Retraction Watch, and this is an amazing website. If you guys have time, please go and see Retraction Watch. These guys, they track all the retractions in every field that is happening in the world. So they have saying that it is these two are published in Nature. So if you see, there are more than 10,000 research papers that are tracked in 2023, and it is just huge, and they're still calling it a tip of the iceberg. For example, in 2014, 300 or 400 articles were retracted, and in 2023, nearly 10,000 articles are retracted. Is a huge increase in retraction. And this articles, the blog clearly gives us that it was 45 per month. Now it is 300 per month. In last year is huge. That means the pressure that's been put on the authors to publish is also huge. So they are in a hurry to do some kind of a publication. The other reason that it's getting it's getting retracted is basically initially days when there is a problem with the article, we used to get letter to the editor. They used to write a letter to the editor saying these are the issues with the article. Nowadays, they do an online analysis or critique of the article. This pubpeer.com is an online journal discussion site where they can take up any article and they can discuss, they can critically comment to the level that it can go to the level of retraction. So pubpeer.com and there are many other sites actually available. So nowadays, since the access is too much to the internet, every article is accessible. The critics are high. They don't give letter to editor and so forth. They directly take it to the social media and they spread the word. So we have to be careful of what we are going to publish. So this is one nice example of what actually can happen. If you see, this was published in 2008 or 9. It is from an anesthesiologist who's done a trial on painkillers. So later they found out they retracted. They just not retracted. He was charged and he was sent for prison due to scientific misconduct in their particular place. After that, it didn't stop with one particular article. 25 more of his papers have been removed from indexing. And also, if you see, it didn't stop with that. There are more than 100 papers that have cited this paper later on. So those papers which have cited this paper, about 40% have been retracted. So even when you're going to cite a paper, you should know that we cannot cite a paper which has already been removed because of retraction. So all these things you have to be very clear when you're going to do a manuscript. So we must be thinking it's all in anesthesiology, medical, or other sciences. Does this happen in dental? Yes, it does happen in dental. And if you see in dentistry, up to 2012, the first graph, if you remember, it was only 50 to 60%. After 2012, there was a massive growth of retractions in dental articles also. And if you see Asia, probably the rules of accreditation or the university rules in Asia is different from the Western world. So the high number of retractions is from this particular part of the earth, and the most sought after reason, or most you can't say sought after, the most commonest reason is research misconduct that is leading to retraction of publication. In another article, you will be able to see in dental publications. Yeah, we do top in the most populous country. We do top in the top 3 in the top most number of articles that is churned out, but we also top and in the number of articles that are getting retracted. That is nearly 30% of the articles have been retracted from India. And if you are sad to see that it is from the field of conservative dentistry, followed by prosthetics. this is the time to take a pause and evaluate ourselves. Are we doing something really wrong? So why are we doing this? Why, how can it be avoided? So it is never too late. It is always a time to take a pause, work or introspect ourselves and to correct ourselves so that the next generation does not do the same mistake. So the causes, this is a really nice article. I'm not going through the article here, just the article on why it is getting retracted. If you see the inner circle here, the maximum cause is because of plagiarism, duplicate publication, falsification, and data issues. These are the main causes. That's why any article is getting retracted. And you have some amount of author conflicts and fake peer review. I'll tell you what is a fake peer review. It's something to know that these things are happening around the globe. So it's basically when you manipulate or fabricate your data, that's where you get caught. And definitely, if you don't know how to write your manuscript, that is the top cause for getting your paper retracted. So from these articles, I'm able to condense it into main three causes: plagiarism, falsification, and fabrication of data. Definitely fake peer review and duplicate publication is on the high rise of as being the etiology for research misconduct and for getting it uh, retracted. So what is this fake peer review? The authors are pushed to a situation where when they want to do some a fast publication, sometimes the journal asks the author to send two or three reviewers' name. These authors create a fake reviewer ID for themselves or their friends, and they send it to the publishers. And if it is getting reviewed by those kind of the authors themselves are reviewing their own articles or their friends doing it, then there is a conflict of reviewer and the article that is sent. Those kind of articles are coming under the category of fake peer review. And going on to duplicate publications, you cannot submit your manuscript at the same time to two or more uh, journals. If at all it is getting the same content is published in two or more journals, the second published journal has to remove the article for retraction. There is no other choice. So these things can never be done. So the rest of the things, falsification and fabrication also cannot be done. I'll be explaining what these things are. So these five are the main problems, but there are problems that can arise and could be considered as a research misconduct in basis of conflicts of interest or copyright infringements or authorship. So what is this conflict of interest? For example, if I'm working on if I'm the key opinion leader for a particular file, or I'm working for some other company, or some company is sponsoring me, like for example, if they're going to sponsor me for biodentine, I'm going to talk about biodentine and I'm doing a research on biodentine and I'm going to publish that article on biodentine, then I have to tell the manuscript or the publisher that I am working in so and so, I am getting paid for doing this research, or I have a conflict in this, despite being the author. So this conflict of interest has to be disclosed because my result might be biased towards biodentine. So this conflict of interest has to be disclosed when you submit your paper. So what is this authorship ethics? Is there really an ethical issue in authorship? Is the question? Yes, there is. We also had an editorial in our own in Endodontology Journal probably 2 years back. The most need of the hour or the $1 million question is who is an author? In India, we have this hierarchy-based appraisal. I mean, hierarchy-based system in whole of the place. So what happens is we tend to add our colleagues who is not contributed to the article, or he could be just my spouse, or he could be the statistician, or she or she could be my sibling, and all those things in the same field. We tend to add all of them as authors, which is not allowed. So who can be added as an author? ICMJ has given excellent guidelines and it's been modified in 2022 to know who is the author. So you have to understand these 4 points. If you see, please note the different colors here and also the underlined words. If you can be an author only if you have been part of the designing of the study, doing the study, that is conducting the study and getting the data, interpreting the data, and it is not or. You have to do all this, and also there is a word called and. You not use the word and. So you should also be drafting the work, revising it critically. That means you should write the manuscript, do multiple revisions, and again, it's again and you should also approve the final approval. So if you're a part of a co-authorship, yes, you should do all these things. And the most importantly is you're accountable for any flaw in the manuscript. I'm a first year. I just only corrected the references. I don't know what is there in the part of the study. No, that is not allowed. Then you can very well go into the acknowledgement section. I do understand DCI has given the norm every PG should have a publication in by the end of your 3 years. Yes, I do understand, but just by modifying another person's thesis reference, you cannot become a author. So if you are contributing in all four parts, if you have done everything, then you are definitely an author. Otherwise, you should be placed in the section of acknowledgement. If we have not contributed in these sections, we cannot be considered as an author. And I hope that Indian institutes start following ICMJE guidelines very sincerely. There are concepts of ghost authorship and gift authorship, which I'm not going into. It's beyond the scope of this lecture. So you must be thinking, so what? Are they going to really retract my article because of this? Yes, they can retract. There are cases of retraction in dental journals, which has been recently done in the month of April, where there was a conflicting claim of authorship between the authors. The journal was forced to retract this particular what do you call the article because based on authorship. So we have to be careful on who is going to be the author. So going on to the main parts of research misconduct, what is fabrication? Fabrication is creating your own data. So I'm giving you an example, hypothetical example. These are not done in any published studies. This is a hypothetical situation of considering two examples, cyclic fatigue of one file versus another file. For example, ProTaper Universal versus a new file. ProTaper Universal, we all know what is the cyclic fatigue already existing. So if I'm able to know one data, roughly it is around 320. So I may be able to generate all the values myself. And again, I can do this without even doing a study. This is creating of the data. It is very easy. If you're smart enough, you can do this. Again, I have only 5 samples. I don't have the time. I don't have the finances to do, but my HOD is asking 15 samples. So what to do? The most next easiest way a mind of a human will think is duplicate the data or triplicate the data and you still get the same mean standard deviation. You just have to rearrange the data, or you can probably put this as 478 and make this as 456. This remains the same yet. So these are shortcuts of doing these things cannot be done. This is just not possible. You cannot do this. The reviewers are smart. Even if the reviewer misses said there are critics sitting online, this is their only job. They can pick this up very easily. Do not do it. I'm putting this as an example. You just cannot do it. If the HOD, the sample size is 15, please work on 15 and not duplicate or triplicate the data. So this is completely fabricating the data, which is not allowed. Next is falsification is when you're going to tamper with your machine. For example, you're going to do a EPT. You want to get an EPT testing of 4 or something. So you're going to tamper it slightly with somehow, or you're going to heat your thermometer and measure something. So all these things are tampering with your devices, and equipments is also not allowed. Similarly, if you're going to get a result which is positive for you and there's something negative for you, you have to include both the results. You cannot just publish your positive and favoring results. Most importantly is removing outliers. What is this outliers? The same example what I showed you in the previous slide. In file B, if you see the 10 samples I have done, in file A it is 302. Despite the mean being 383, these two values is too less. So it is pulling your standard deviation towards the other end of 137. So if you apply statistics, mostly there won't be any significant difference between file A and file B because your SD is high. Why is this SD high? Because these two values are extremely low. So what you can do is, what you can do is, what you tend to do is, if you remove these two values, okay, and you recalculate your mean and standard deviation, you get an excellent mean and excellent standard deviation, which you're going to get it as a comparable value. Yes, a lot of people do this, but do we have to do this? If at all, what can be done? If that's the case, redo the 2 samples again, if it's possible, or increase your sample size. Do not keep removing outliers from your data to get favorable results. So we have to know why these two files failed. If it is two, it's so okay. What if it is five? If you're going to remove five values and keep only five values, again your sample size is not again comparable. So you cannot do this. So removing outliers has to be done with very cautiously. It has to be done, and we have to know whether it is right or wrong. And the most important aspect is tampering with images. When you create an image, we tend to increase your contrast and brightness and so many other things. So, do we have guidelines for this? Yes, we have excellent guidelines of how not to do images and how to touch the image, what to do and what not to do. Office of Research Integrity, so that they have given guidelines for how to process an image. For example, I'm not talking about bar graphs or forest plot and things like that. I'm talking about images like SEM images or your histology images, immunohistochemistry images, cellular baselines. If you guys are doing cell lines, what should be done and what cannot be done. If it's a bar diagram or a line diagram or data representation, this I'm not talking about those. So if you are taking an SCM image or a histology image of cell, preserve the original image. You cannot touch the original image. Make a duplicate copy of it if you're going to alter the contrast or brightness. And when you're going to change the pixel, if you're going to change, if you're going to zoom a bacteria and see, you may change the pixel. So you have to be very careful when you're going to do the changing of pixel. You can crop the borders, but you cannot clone the images. I'll tell you what is cloning with an example. If you are taking digital images, then you have to set the standards. Identical conditions has to be used for comparison. For example, if you're doing a clinical study of root and length, if you do a regeneration, you're seeing whether the root is growing or not, whether the root length is increased or not. You should have a position device to do it. You cannot have one with the position device, one without a position device, and say yes, the root is elongated or something like that. So on digital images, you have to have ideal conditions for comparing. And if you're going to adjust, it should maximum be very simple brightness and contrast adjustments. And even then, you cannot do it beyond a point. I will show you an example for that. And you cannot use filters. You cannot change the colors. For example, if it is a CLSM study and you're having specific dye with red, you cannot change it to green and say, yes, the dye is not, it is viable cell or non-viable cells. You have to be careful when you do filters and also changing the colors. Again, getting the correct magnification, and it has to be mentioned in the manuscript is important. And when you're going to use devices, it has to be calibrated. And if you're going to compress the images, it cannot be an irreversible compression. That's why they always say work on your original images. And image manipulating of one part of the image is not allowed. So if you're going to increase brightness contrast, you cannot do it in one part of it. So you have to be careful of what is being done. And most importantly, you have to consider images as data. It is just not an additional one. Images are data, and try not to tamper with them. So all these things, the Office of Research Integrity, it is the ORI, we call it as ORI. So if you go there, all these guidelines are explained very well. I cannot go into everything in this short span of time. So everything is being discussed, and there are a couple of case studies which is very interesting to know. So if you see that this is just a hypothetical case study where if this is the original image and you're going to do the color enhancement, this is allowed when you are slightly enhancing the color, but you cannot enhance this to the level that there is a loss of data. If you see a couple of cells are missing here. So this is allowed, but this is not allowed. Similarly, if you're going to splice and paste, come on, two groups are there, you want to show or before and after of the same place as an SCM or something like that. If you are going to combine two images, then you have to mention that it is image A and image B, and this vertical line has to be there. Without it, if you give it as a single image, the result could be interpreted as it's from one sample. So this is totally wrong, and they can take you a task for this. Similarly, if you're going to crop off, this we regularly see in histopathology, if you're going to see a remaining dentin thickness or a new pulp capping studies where we see the dentin bridge formation, you're going to expand that particular part of your dentin bridge. It has to come with the background, expand it, and then write in the legends what are you doing in that particular place, what is the magnification, all that. If you're going to blur the background and only keep this, then again you will lead to a lot of bias in the result. So these are some couple of case studies. This is called as a comet assay, where they usually do this for DNA fragmentation. So if you see, this is the head of the cell, and if the DNA is fragmented, it usually makes a tail. It will lag behind in the agar gel. So this is a case study. If you may at the first spot you think that it is two different things and your protein A is having a lot of DNA fragmentation. Actually, what it is it's the control sample which is being cropped, and they have lightened the sample and they have created this tail to show that protein A is showing a lot of DNA fragmentation. So it's the same sample which is being manipulated to be given as a sample. Similarly, if you see, this is immunohistochemistry of a case study where they have shown between two type of proteins and multiple groups. If you see M1 and M4 are nothing but vertically flipped images, and it is the one and the same. So they have just used the same images to show between two groups. If you see, this is where the cloning is seen. It is being managed. If you see the third image, this is a cloned image. You can see it's a structure of a cell with beautiful attachment and adhesion and all those things. But this is on you have softwares where we can find out whether it is a cloned image. That is, they have layered two images and the black area show that the area is cloned and extra images are added. So all these things, doctors can still do it, but it is easy to find out if people are having adequate softwares. And this is a gel electrophoresis. It's not that we don't do in dentistry. These are all we can something that we still do in dentistry. So these studies, because research is such that we also do gel electrophoresis. If you want to know whether this protein expression, they have totally removed it from this place. You can do it with, even with a normal Photoshop, you can remove it. Again, they have introduced, if you see, this is the original image. However, if you want to create a band in your gel electrophoresis, even that can be done. But these are all manipulated images, and all these things can be found out by the reviewer and also by any critic that is available online with the software. So again, this is an example of mineralization foci, where if you see, this is the original image, the foci is very less and there is a bigger foci here. However, in the manipulated image, if you see, that has been removed and these foci are enhanced. All these things cannot be done. This is strictly no. You cannot tamper your images. Not only your data, images cannot be tampered. So this has to be really taken into your mind today, that you cannot touch any of the data that you're getting. Whatever you get it, publish it or interpret it rather than tampering with your data. So these things are, there's nothing called unintentional. The statistician gave this, the technician gave me the image. No, there is nothing like that. You can never defend yourself for such mistakes. These are all considered intentional mistakes. So will they retract? Will they reprimand you? Yes. This was one article which was published in 2002, not now. This was 20 years or 22 years back. They have retracted the article after 22 years. It's not like, okay, 5 years have gone, they cannot touch my data. No, they can still retract after 22 years. This is one of the study where they have found it has been retracted for the reason of having misconduct or doing some tampering with the figures. If you see, the upper half is similar to the lower half, they are duplicated, and all these things cannot be retrieved by the authors. Usually, we say keep the data for 5 years. Even 3 to 5 years is the term we always say keep your data, but this after 24 years they've asked and they are not able to retrieve. This article was removed from the processing. So do really scientists fabricate and falsify data? This is an interesting study which I came on, where they are accepting to the fact that yes, we do falsify and plagiarize and all those things. This is surprising that they've also done even among statisticians. And 13% have said that they've been forced to do some falsification of data. And the last study, which is highlighted in red, though the sample size is small, these are between the medical authors. 56% have accepted that yes, they falsify and they do plagiarize the data. So this is not uncommon, it is happening. So we have to be careful of what we are going to publish. So these are two websites, Office of Research Integrity and the Committee of Publication Ethics. These two people give you all guidelines of what to do and what not to do. So if you're having any queries, you just have to go there. There are so many case studies, so many examples. You just have to play around the website there. You don't need any demo for all these things. Just write it down. You just go there. They'll help you out. There are already case studies similar. You will be able to learn a lot by just going and spending some time in these websites. One interesting case summary here of what are the consequences from ORI, I just put it here. if it is a funded study, in Western world, funding is a big thing. So if you're going to have NHS funding or some other funding, huge funding, so this they take it into task much severely. So this is a funded study where, if at all it is having some issues, it's been raised, there will be an inquiry committee with the publisher, the journal, the university, everything will be having an inquiry committee. They will take all your other articles, they will have an inquiry of all the other articles, and they found out this particular person has been intentionally falsifying not one but 51 figures, has been manipulated in his studies, and he has reused his histopathology studies multiple times. So what was the repercussion? He was debarred from doing any other grants, and he cannot be in any other advisory consultancy capacity. He may lose the job, and the article will be retracted mostly with so many other things. So the repercussion of doing misconduct in research and publishing them is you can be excluded from grants. Yeah, first year PGs, you may not be worried about grants, but if you're planning to be in academics, try to know that grants, getting a grant and doing good research is definitely important. So you cannot venture out into doing misconduct early in your life or never in your life. So you can face inquiry committee retraction, and you'll be excluded. You may lose the job. So the repercussions are pretty high if you do a misconduct in the research. So in this part, what are the do's and don'ts for falsification and fabrication? In the initial part of it is simple. There is nothing big. Only one rule of thumb: don't lie in your research. There is nothing called unintentional or intentional. The most important thing, this I learned it from my son during COVID times. They used to write an exam with two cameras facing them, one from the laptop, one from another laptop, because they have to take the exam at the house. So they are not supposed to copy. So they gave them this shortcut called as accountability, integrity, and responsibility. So I think this holds good for your research also. So the last part is on plagiarism. I think this is something we get caught maximum with. So what is this? Plagiarism is, the definition includes that you appropriate. It's a deliberate. They say it is a deliberate appropriation of other person's idea, process, or results. However, it is, in short, it is called as the literary theft. So what is this? What is this, and how are we going to avoid doing plagiarism? So there are two types. Basically, the classification is huge. I'm not going into all the theoretical part. But basically, for your understanding, you have to know a verbatim copy or inappropriate paraphrasing. I'll tell you what is a paraphrasing, what is a patch writing. So all these things will come under textual plagiarism. And if you are not providing proper references, the citation is not proper, then it is called as conceptual plagiarism. For example, if you do something very nice and your friend takes the credit and goes to your HOD and says, Madam, I did this case, how will you feel? The HOD will start praising your friend. Wow, that's very absolutely brilliant management of the case. Actually, you would have managed. So you feel bad about it. It's exactly the same. Somebody has published it. You don't give the credit for the publication. They feel bad about it and they try to retract it. As simple as that. So the credit has to be given properly. And this is more important for persons who are doing focused research. For example, salami slicing is something like you data fragment. I have 50 cases of cervical resorption. I have done some clinical studies. So I cannot produce one paper on prognosis, one paper on factors, and one paper on something else. So if it is a limited data, and there's nothing much, you cannot give the same data to sliced parts. For example, I'm doing smear layer of root canal with some file system. I cannot give overall smear layer removal in one paper and apical coronal middle third smear layer in another paper. So you cannot do that. It's called a salami slicing. You cannot do that. Again, duplicate publication, don't submit it to 2 or 3 publications. So all these things will lead to problems. So why do we keep doing this? More than plagiarism, we also call it as textual similarity. When you don't write it properly, it's called textual similarity. So why do we do this? Now all of you must be doing your LD and all those things. So what do? You take a articles, copy, paste it. This is what we do in our seminars. We do it in our JDs. Do we sit and type and read and do it? No, we don't do it. So this copy paste culture is there from LD seminar and also your JD presentation. So from today, don't do this. Try to start rewording it or start writing yourself. It's an art. So when you start doing it now, you will learn it in the long run. So obviously, lack of time, pressure on publication. I don't know how to write it. So once you start writing it, you will have hiccups, but you will eventually know the art of writing. And basically, English is not our language. So if at all you're able to go through Grammarly, nowadays Grammarly is there to help you correct the English and all those things. So you can try all those softwares also. So let me give you a couple of examples. These two are published. I'm not giving you from where and all those things. If you see the one and this one is ditto copy, the first 5 lines, this paragraph is completely copied except for the word typically. So this is definitely not acceptable, and the whole verbatim passage of copy of the passage is not possible, and you cannot do this. So we cannot do all these things. So next is this example. So this I have actually created a test samples. I have taken a couple of lines from various articles. I have run it through a plagiarism software to check if in the corner you will be able to see there is 74. That is the percentage of textual similarity in this particular document. See here, I have not copied the whole paragraph. I have taken from a couple of articles. This is from one article, this is from another article, this is from article, but this whole sentence is from a single article. More than 6 words together is considered as plagiarism by WHO. So this is a whole sentence. If you see, it will give you a breakup. I think it is a fantastic tool. If your university is able to give you this tool, I think you should start using it. It will give you which article is being taken, which sentences are taken, it is color coded. If it is pink, I know where is the pink. I have to see that's taken from that article. So this is called as partly it is copied verbatim, or if you're trying to modify it slightly from multiple sources, it's called as patch writing. So you, whether it is intentionally you do it or unintentionally, I don't know how to do it. Both are not allowed. The repercussions are the same. So you cannot do all these things. So how are we going to avoid this? So let me give an example and let you know how to do this. So I've just taken one paper. This is a fantastic paper. I love this paper because this person, Krasner and Rankov, did one paper and a very good paper, and he's known for this paper. So I'm taking law. It's a law. So if you see the law, there are 3 lines, and I'm going to use this in my manuscript. So if I'm going to use this in my manuscript, I have taken the same, since it's a law, I have just copied it and put it, and I also put a reference. So is this correct or not? So this cannot be done. If you're going to take verbatim from the another article, and even if you're going to cite it, you have to put it within quotes. So this has to be given within quotes with the reference, because you already put Krasner and Rankov here. The citation of the year should come, but you don't see much of this in biomedical journals. This is not a physics journal. This is a biomedical journal. This you can still write it in your own words. So let's see what is paraphrasing and summarizing. Paraphrasing, if it's 8 lines, for example, if it's an 8-line summary, 8-line paragraph, you're going to rewrite it in your own words, but the length is the same. It's 8 lines or 7 lines still. That is called paraphrasing. And if it is summarizing, you're going to summarize it into much less number of sentences. I'll show you examples of both. The same article, couple of sentences. I have rewritten it in my own way, but is this correct is the question. If you see this line, consistent anatomic landmark is being used again, but it is the most important point in this particular paragraph. So you're using the same lines there. Again, I'll just change regardless to irrespective. This does not count as a normal paraphrasing. It will still considered as, it will be hit your textual similarity still. Just by changing 1 or 2 words does not matter. Again, if you see these words, these underlined words are used the same. So this is the improper way of paraphrasing. We cannot do it. So you have to redo the whole paragraph in your own words and completely rewrite it. And if you see, I have used 2 points, the most reliable guide from the original text. So I have put that in my quotes, and the word North Star. North Star is not something that we have found out. So that also should come under the quotation. So we have, and again, the reference also has to be given. So this is how you write your paraphrasing. You will not get it in the first shot. So you have to do it multiple times to get this right. So that's why I keep telling you, don't copy paste your LDN seminars. You start writing your own ways in your LDN seminars. So every seminar you don't copy paste. You start writing in your own words. Then you will understand how to write it. Okay, next going into what is called as summarizing. The whole these things, none of the words are repeated. I just took in the gist and I've just put it is one of the most important positions that can help you in endodontics. So nothing is being repeated, but the gist and the meaning should not change. So this is called summarizing. So I've just, the whole 8 lines has become 3 lines. So this is called summarizing. So next is one more important thing of citations. What is the citation? See, citation is the reference that you give within the text is called citation. So if you see the first line, they have shown this is from my own students where they have given me a paper to correct various obturation techniques in curved root canal 9, 10, and 11. If you see 9, 10, and 11, nothing is related to this particular line. It is the improper citation. Similarly, in this study, if you see, this is some voids they have talked about, and they're giving two authors, D. Deuce and some et al. But these two names are not even there in the list. So this particular line is not giving the correct credit. As I said before, if your HOD is going to give credit for your work to somebody else, you will not like it. So these people will also not like it. So these are all called as improper citations. And if you take any journal or any article, every article will have one or two like this. Few people may get they just walk away with all these mistakes, but unfortunately you may get caught with all these mistakes. So what is the big deal? Can they retract for this? Yes, this is again another retraction article just for improper citations that was done. It was again a dental journal just last year. So this is a very common reason for retraction because the credit for the idea is being given to the wrong person. So again, that becomes a issue, even if it is an improper citation. This is very important. This is called a secondary citation, and we cannot do secondary citation. What we generally do is we take an article, we read the article, you find some point, and you give that particular author as reference. You don't go back and see whether that guy has really done the article. For example, this person, this particular sentence on a avulsion to the nerve supply gets cut off, and they have given a reference as Martin and Pileggi. If you have to see, if you go and see this particular dental traumatology article, and if you see whether this person, Martin, has done the study, if you go and see that actually this person has not done the particular study, this study is not showing that output. So it was actually given in the introduction by somebody else. So what? You have to take that article and see who's actually given the particular sentence. So this is called as secondary source. The article in which you're reading is called as the secondary source, and who has exactly done the article is called as the primary source. Unfortunately, even this was not the right person, and when I traced this article back, it was done in somewhere 1986 by Anderson. So we should always cite only the primary source and not the secondary source. So if you're going to write this, how are we? This is from Anderson. So only Anderson has to be credited for the work and not Martin. So this is totally a wrong citation, and this article can be retracted for this particular point also. So what do? We always have to make sure you have the full article with you before you cite. So original source has to be cited in the as the primary source. If you don't have it, you're not able to procure, then you can do the secondary source citation, but you have to mention this. So if you see here, as cited by Anderson in 1995, I have put that in the text, and then but one will be the reference of the secondary source. I hope you guys are getting this. A secondary source cannot be directly cited unless the primary source is mentioned in the article. Better is to go back and get the primary source and give the primary source. So you will get used to this slowly, but know that you cannot give secondary citations. So when you go to citation, that is when do you cite? That is when do you give a reference? Why you have to cite, where you have to cite, what you have to cite, and how you have to cite. This is a huge topic by itself, so I will not go into it. Just a small summary I will give you of what you have to do. If it is a common knowledge, and you have to know who you are targeting. I am writing to endodontic prod, I'm writing to JOE, so I can still write mandibular molar has two roots and three canals. It's common knowledge, you don't have to give citations because we have limitations on the references also. So I don't have to do that. So if it is an endodontic crowd, know your audience. If I'm going to write it to mandibular molar is having two roots and three canals to a general medicine guy, probably I have to give a reference there. They may not know. Hypochlorite dissolves pulp. Endodontist will know, orthodontist may not know. So you have to know your audience, then decide whether you have to give a citation there or not. Next is if the fact is not from, the result is not from your study, you cannot put it in your study. If you are putting, then the reference has to be. You cannot take one table from another person's study and compare it. So all those things cannot be done. If the fact or the image, if you're taking an image, just a line diagram you're taking from somebody else and you're putting, then you have to have the citation there. So you have to be very careful there. And most importantly, we are not sure whether this needs a reference or not. Better to oversight it rather than do a less citation. So these are some things you have to know how to cite. And few tips of responsible referencing is do not and never cite a retracted article. The retracted article will be marked as retracted. So never cite a retracted article. No excessive self-citation. That is, I have already worked on biodentin for 5 years. I have 5 articles. I cannot keep citing my own references. So don't do that. Again, that will lead to an issue with your citation and your H index and all those things. Then do proper summarizing and paraphrasing. Very old references try to avoid unless warranted. And if you don't know the author guidelines, it is becoming an issue. So kindly know the author guidelines and avoid secondary citation and improper citations. And citations favoring both the author and the research, both positive and negative citations has to be there. For example, if the study is having so few controversial studies also has to be discussed in your paper. You cannot leave out all those citations. Most importantly, you have to, when you write the paper, start writing day one. If you're writing your LD or your JD or whatever, when you start itself, the citation has to be started. So you can use reference management systems from day one. From first year, start using reference management system. It's very useful. You will thank me later at the end of 3 years. So start using Zotero, which is a very simple free software where you can use for citing. And any errors in typing and all those things will be taken care of it when you use a Zotero or any reference management system. So there are ways of avoiding problems with references. Be responsible in your referencing. Prior submitting, always check your data for plagiarism. The journal will check, but still it's your duty to check it once. You have free and paid. Nowadays, most of the universities, because of accreditation, are giving you paid softwares. They have a publication committee and so many things. So run through them. They have various advantages with the paid software, Authenticate, Turnitin. They're all very good softwares. And they give you comparisons also, so you won't miss anything. If you don't have a paid software, please go to a free software at least. Check your plagiarism prior to submission. In the end, I would like to conclude with this is the most happening thing, ChatGPT. My kids are, I mean, my students are still giving me abstracts or submission for IES and IACD conference writing in ChatGPT. So whether we can use ChatGPT in writing, is it a misconduct, is one of the most common questions everybody asks me. There are a lot of data, whether to use or not. There are so many studies coming out in medicine, dentistry, everywhere, but you have to know certain things in ChatGPT. That is AI hallucination. What is this AI hallucination? AI can think that is existing that when the data is not actually there. The AI can hallucinate. So it may be giving you an imperfect data. So even if it is giving you some data, it's throwing you very easy. Nowadays, it's so easy to get data. You just have to put it in Copilot or Bard or ChatGPT. It gives you with references also sometimes, but you have to manually verify everything. The AI can give you incorrect data. Have that in mind. There could be copyright infringements, and you cannot give authorship to ChatGPT, obviously. There is no guidelines on plagiarism. Can artificially written or open source AI written article, can it have plagiarism? Yes, it can have plagiarism. GPT-4o, O is called Omni, that is launched recently in May. It has updated its resources, but however, this resources is available only in the paid version. This GPT-4o also can have hallucination. It can have incorrect data. It is so new. So be cautious, and references are not always there, and they have checked the quality and correctness. There are studies that has been done in various research topics. They have found that the quality of the ChatGPT generated abstracts is not accurate 100%. It is suboptimal, and 30% of the time it is incorrect. So be careful of what is the data you're getting from ChatGPT. Yes, for a quick go through, yes, but this is your research. You should write it. So be careful of what you're doing. Journals have started giving guidelines of how to use AI in scientific writing. This is not pertaining how you are using AI in diagnosing or doing the study. This is only for scientific writing they have given. You can use it according to JOE, but you have to mention that you are doing it, and you cannot give authorship, and it cannot be cited as an author. You have to definitely say which part is written using AI. So the journals are coming up, since it's new, all journals are coming up with some policies for using ChatGPT. In conclusion, yes, there is a lot of retractions in dentistry happening in India and also globally. Mostly it is redundant publication or the duplicate publication or manipulation, plagiarism, authorship tops it. So we have to be careful. Unfortunately, it's sad to know that India is topping in this also. So I do understand there is a lot of pressure on us, but doesn't mean that we have to do something wrong. If 100 people do it and you're doing it right, it's still okay. You're the one person doing it right. Do it. Do not go in the track of some 100 people who is doing it in the wrong sense. So even if you're one person doing it in the right way, please do it with honest way. So again, I try to put don't pry in research. So you have to have the right knowledge, know the ethics, what are the ethics in research, set your standards. That you have to have a class standard apart. You will always thank yourself that you didn't do the wrong thing. And make sure you have good writing techniques. Citations are important. Take up responsibility. Use all these softwares like Zotero and things, and do have a happy writing and publication. And I take this opportunity to thank my team. They've always been a pillar of support for me. Always they back me up in all my endeavors. Thank you. Thank you.